Hello, welcome or welcome back to the channel. So if you're tired of playing yarn chicken with the long tail cast on, you think you may have enough of a tail for 50 stitches that you need, and then you cast on and you only have 48, you have to frog back everything, or you just can't get the hand movements of the long tail cast on. I think today may be a great alternative with this cast on that we're going to learn. So the cast on that we're talking about today is going to be the knitted cast on. It's great for beginner knitters or people that just, want an alternative to the long tail cast on. And there's no measuring of yarn involved. So what I used here for this mini swatch is it's just a worsted weight yarn, and I use a 5.5 millimeter say that fast, needle, but just get any type of scrap yarn that you have with the appropriate needle. Come on back and we'll get to learn how to do the knitted cast on. So with the knitted cast on, what you're doing is essentially knitting, which you already know how to do, and placing that knit stitch from one needle to the next. So let me show you what I mean. So first you're going to start off by doing your slip knot, and you do it however you have learned. This is how I do mine. And I'm a right-handed knitter, so just note that. So I'm going to take that slip knot and I'm going to place it on the needle and secure it. Not too tight. Make sure you can move it back and forth, but not too loose so that it's out of control. So now I'm going to go from right to left. And like that, I'm going to secure it just a little bit more. And now I'm going to take my needle and go in your slip knot as if you were going to knit. Like so. Okay. So you should be looking like this so far. Okay. Now make sure you're taking the right yarn, not this tail piece, but the yarn from your skein. Okay. You're going to go in as if you are knitting, like so, but you're not going to slip anything off. You're going to hold. So you should look like this. Now with your left needle, you're going to scoop under the yarn. So you're going to do a motion that looks like this. Slide onto your left hand needle. And then now that everything's secure, if you want, you can hold on this. You notice how my index finger is holding on to here and holding on to here. Make sure you're good to go. And then you're going to just slide your right needle out. And you obviously don't want this big loop. So you're just going to pull down slightly. Not too tight because you don't want your cast on to be too tight, because then there's going to be a fight to knit or purl into your cast on row. So let's do that again. So go into as if to knit. Make sure you're always going into not this stitch back here, but your next available stitch. All right. Go in as if to knit and hold. I keep my loop pretty large because I need that flexibility, and I tend to pull a little tight, so I try to over exaggerate. So then go right underneath, onto the left, scoot out the right, slight pull down. Let's do it again. Go into knit, hold, scoop over, under I should say, with the left hand needle, scoot out the right, slight pull down. One more, make sure I'm in frame here. Go in like this, knit, hold, left needle, scoop under, onto the left, scoot out the right. Let's make sure that this loop isn't that big. Slight pull down. So you'll do that motion for as many stitches as you need to have onto your needle. Just practice and get the mechanics of it. And now that you know how to do the technique, let's talk about some advantages and disadvantages to doing this particular cast on. So I wanted to point out the advantages and disadvantages of doing this particular cast on, just so you'll know what you're up against. So, some of the advantages are that you're not going to have to play that yarn chicken that I mentioned before, hoping that your tail is long enough. And if it's not long enough, having to rip back if you don't have enough stitches casted on. So, you're just working with the yarn that you have. So, there's not that much of a risk of casting on incorrectly. And secondly, if you are a beginner knitter, then you're knitting as you know how to do, and it's a great way to practice that. So that's something to keep in mind. However, the cons of using this is it is a slower cast on. So it's going to go slower than, let's say, the long tail cast on or any other cast ons that you may know. So you're going to have to pack your patience and just be aware of that. It can be a looser cast on than others you may know. So as you see here, it is a bit loose, and I'm a relatively tight knitter and it's loose for me. So if you don't mind that, I don't think it's terrible. So, but just something to keep in mind. If your design doesn't look that great with something loose, then this may be something that you may not want to use. And then also, if you are doing a purl row for your first row, then just know that when you're doing the knitted cast on, your first row is a knitted row. So you're going to have, and I'm going to come up a little closer, hopefully, so you can see that. You see here that you have these knit-like stitches on that first cast on row. So if you are asked to do row one as a purl stitch, maybe in like a reverse stockinette, you're going to have that delineation there, and then it's not as neat as it is here, where it's just melted in if your first row was a knit row. So just some things to keep in mind if you want to use this particular cast on. So I hope, as always, that this video has served you well, and try the cast on and let me know in the comments what you think. If knitting tutorials are something that you like and you are a visual learner, please consider subscribing and liking the video, and I'll see you on the next one.